Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Monday, December 7th. Blah, 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 blah. I apparently don't know what day it is. I thought I did when I started. It's December 17th, 2018, and I'm here this evening with my gal pals, Lisa Flamino Rush and BZ Rieger, and we're going to talk about Tic Toc, Time to Stand Up and Choose is the title of this one. And BZ, this was one you wanted to play with that I kind of derailed a couple of weeks ago, actually. So I would love it if you would just dive right in.
Well, you know, everybody can feel that something's up. They may not be able to put their finger on it or enumerate it, or they may not describe it in the same way, but something is up, and it's more something up than this time of year. It's more something up than rushing, to do all of these things, or it's more than something up with that, orange-haired guy in the White House. It's, so it's more than all of that. And some who are tuning into and have a knowing and a direct experience of knowing of what's going on, know that it's just cosmically delicious. And let's get going. And some have a feeling of kind of a push me, pull you feeling, kind of a hurry up and hurry. But because I might miss my, my ride, my train, sort of a thing. But they feel like they're actively kind of trying to procrastinate. So what's up?
I kept hearing harriedly hurried.
Yes.
Yeah.
And part of that, a good way to describe the harried comes from, and these are just linear placeholder words, but the harried, I would say, comes from the beings in the shirt part of the equation. And it's not so much hurry, but it's flow, and it's a rush and a flush, but not, that I'm rushing, but that like a river rushes, right? And it flows, and it, when you have the snow melt come off the mountains in the spring, everything is fresh and it's verdant, and the river is rushing, and, sometimes the river overswells its banks, but it brings seas in. So it's all of an abundant nature, and there, are momentary ebbs and flows and shifts here and there within a day's time or a week's time. They change. So it's that kind of rushing, as opposed to, oh, I'm late, I gotta rush. And all of this is it's all about energy, but it's all about physical, linear, tangible, perceivable from these regular eyes, ears, and the whole, more basic linear 5 senses. Everybody, wherever they are in the awake, woken, waking, however you want to hold it, they know something is up, and like I said, they may put their fingers on it differently. And so it's the ticking and the talking is, again, it could be, one could look at it as a metaphor of a clock, but it's more of akin to circadian rhythms. And these are actually, instead of a circadian rhythm as far as your sleep cycle and all that kind of, this is and I don't know the right word. This is your celestial rhythms, or your your quantum galactic type rhythms. And what you're doing is you're beginning to feel and perceive all the different aspects of you. So your future and all of that, and that rushing like a stream. If you ever seen different a creek and a stream and something may converge, and so that's what that happening is, that converging and the bubbling up and effervescence of all that. And so we need to choose. Every being needs to choose.
Well, that feeling that you're describing right there, that rushing, that's what I'm feeling energetically more and more. And that's why I wanted to show that. And I think that might be why I chose that. I feel like that is a perfect representation, along with, Magenta Pixie's representations about our energy, what we really are. I said that before. I said that actually when our very first conversation that we had, where you didn't have your video up yet. Our very first actual unconscious conversation, when I realized that I had accidentally, when making my sigil all those years ago, depicted sort of this. It wasn't exactly that. It was, but now I can feel that feels like the truth of who I am. And I'm wondering if, when you're speaking in terms of that river rushing, could that be a representation, a 3D, well, actually 2D in that particular form, representation of what you're feeling or seeing?
Yeah, and I would actually say it's more than 2D, because that's a sheet of paper, but the actual, what that picture is a representation of, is multidimensional. And the rushing and the flows, one way you could look at it, okay, that's funny, a turnstile in a New York City subway. So you can flow one way through it, and you can go through very quickly in a whole line of people, and they may be moving quickly because they can hear that the train is coming, so they're going through. And if someone hits the turnstile with their hand and it starts it on the spin backwards, right? It's slowing the process down of moving through, number one. Number two, they actually, depending on how they've spun it, they've stopped themselves from they cannot go through.
Right.
They can't go through the turnstile. And so if you think of the river flows for a moment within yourself as your thought flows, as the actual vibratory frequency of the different thoughts that you have. And the choosing is on choosing to be expansive and go with all of the expansion, and go with love absolute or not. And you can't fake it. That's the other thing. That's why I think the turnstile comes to mind. You can't say, well, look, I'm spinning it, because it works seamlessly one way and with that flow, and it won't work. Or it might move a little and you start, but if you so that's, and if you're so here's another thing. A lot of people hold this as if you know, if someone's thinking about, okay, well, people who have done bad things or mean things or cruel things or had the thought of different ways to control and be cruel to other beings, you know, and so they hold those as kind of demonstrable acts that it seems to be easy to see. Okay, well, sure, then that has a frequency and you can see that. But the there are many, 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 many others who aren't in that category yet are choosing to be going in this, to the same place that those beings are, because they are doing it. They are doing things that have the same energy characteristics to their thought process, their actions, and they could be directed to other people outside, and they could be directed to themselves, you know. And so a good way to start to kind of understand it is if there's any way, shape, or form at all that you are belittling or lowering or castigating or shunting off, or just kind of get a sense of some of those things that you're doing that to yourself, then what you are doing is saying, I'm choosing. And, you know, it'll be a good time to pay attention because you're not choosing what you think you're choosing. You know?
Well, I know that it would seem that there's, in my experience recently, that yeah, it's more of a I don't know. I'm feeling frequential stuff a whole lot more keenly than I ever have.
Yes, me too. And it feels like this energetic is very amplifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the water is amplifying. Everything is amplifying, which makes it imperative to really monitor where your thoughts are in all moments. And this is kind of going back to what I'm thinking now more about the conversation the other night about how I thought I was participating. But really, I had, you know, there are moments of participation, surely. But making that a seamless, this is something that I do, is completely different. And it really begins with really the mind, I want to say. The thoughts that I choose to entertain, like you know, it's one thing to kind of, you know, notice a thought and then just kind of let it go. And it's another thing to really entertain it and amplify that right now. It just feels like whatever thoughts I'm holding, I am noticing. Well, like just even the other day when I was feeling triggered at everything, I had this sense of irritation that got expanded because of this energy and this rush and this flow. So immediately I went into, I can feel this all over in my body, and not in a pleasant way, by the way. And because of the rushing and the amplification, luckily I caught it immediately, or not luckily, it really, it was so in my face that I went, oh, wait a minute, you know, what am I doing? And it also, this rushing calls to mind I feel an urgency. This rushing makes me feel, and I'm identifying this urgency as, the urgency is to participate fully, 100%, you know, consciously in all moments of now, yeah, and now too, and now and still now. There's a lot of now, but I can see now that the thoughts that I'm holding as this energetic is rushing through me and amplifying the thoughts that I'm focusing on, well, of course, it's going to be stronger and bigger and better than the way I have been creating in the past because of this brush. And so how more important, right, is it to know that you're focusing on that which you really wish to experience. So this is really, really an exciting moment that you would bring this up, because I was just kind of discovering this or noticing it for myself. So.
Yeah, and one of the things that you was kind of a visual of different confluence of different rivers coming through when you were talking about that. So you said, well, it's important for me to focus on what it is that I really want to be focused on and how I want to flow. And sometimes confusion will come up for people because they'll be doing that, and all of a sudden, there'll be this big log, to use the river metaphor, that's now come through, it's floating, and it's gone kitty corner, and it's like, well, it's in my way, or it's not supposed to be there, or that's a bad log, that's not what I want. And what really is, it has to do with that when you're in this flow and you are being more conscious. And so it's more of not just a doing, it's a being of doing. So it's a way of being and doing things that, the log is actually yours. It's your log. It came off of your stream of what had been in the past. And you can dematerialize it, or have it whistle up a whole bunch of other log friends and really block, as if you were turning
a dam for you,
right, damming up the thing. And so it's those pieces that come off that you that. So you say, okay, well, I want to focus on expansive, and I want focuses, my river's going to be blue and it lets in a lot of light, and so I can sail that way, just to give a pictorial. And all of a sudden this big red log comes along and you're like, well, my river's blue, I don't focus on that, right? But as soon as you, instead of pushing it away or getting, now you have a choice. When the red log comes along, you can choose and go, oh, look at that. That was some stuff that was muddy mixed colors or something in my flow of energy frequency. I'm so powerful that I made it be red so it would really highlight for me, so I could really pay attention to it. And I go, oh, that's great. I can either focus on it. There might be some things I want to do to actively let go of it or to actively integrate it. Or I can just completely release it and it dematerializes and turns blue again. So if so kind of what came up is that there's a lot of turns of phrase, euphemisms that are in our vernacular that really are, I mean, yes, you could, I'm sure, Google them and look at, how did that phrase come into being and what's that? And, that could be accurate to a point, but they really are there as ways to thwart our, no good deed goes unpunished. And, all these kinds of things come to mind. I'm thinking, well, that's a stupid thing. But a lot of it is there. It's to twist the energy frequencies of being, and it's another way to twist the different words. And only the good die young, and yada yada yada. I mean, there's there's all sorts of different things that come up. And so again, it's every moment of every moment. So every little fiber of every moment is a choice point moment. And it doesn't mean that you have to, quit your job, get divorced, go go sit on the top of a mountain and, only have your leg in the right position. And, it's just about being conscious. Hey, because that's what's happening is you're becoming more conscious and you're expanding your consciousness. And so it's not only how you walk through and move through your world, what you're feeling, what you're emitting, what you're speaking, what you're giving thought and voice to. And as you move through and encounter things, then just like we had kind of the silly metaphor of the red log in the blue river. Well, you just look at it, you just notice it. What is it beholding for you? And you could see, oh, well, that's remnants of, that big, huge tree that I had dammed stuff up before, and I see what that is, and I'm just going to let it go, and I can actually watch this. I can just dematerialize it. So it's a question of not only how we're flowing within ourselves, but then how we interact. Because yes, we could say there's, myself here, and then there's two other beings here. There's a dog, there's a cat, there's other beings here on this piece of real estate where I reside on, so, but that interaction and that flow, it's all the same river, and it's my river. Just like for Lisa, that's the same, and it's Lisa's river, and Sheila, and so on. You could just go to all the many beings all over Source's multiverse, and that's the same thing, because there are all of those different beings, and there is only one being. There are all those different rivers and flows, and there is only one flow.
Yeah, they're all part of the same flow. I mean, on the largest level, on the most expansive level. I really don't. This conversation is reminding me a lot of what we were talking about the other night too, where the energy is such that with just even it feels a little focus and attention, if you're not full on running from yourself, things that come up, like Lisa was speaking with her, being triggered and aggravated that day, or agitated, I think you said. Me with my incident here, where I actually got to see a thing with Albert here. We talked about that very thing. It's the exact same thing for me. It's the same feeling as what we're discussing here. So the key, the signs, the impetus presents. It's whether or not I saw it. So I have to be, for things like that, when this choosing comes up, if one is not actively, I don't know, for me it's I'm going towards what makes my heart sing, and so I want to find out what isn't comfortable, what's not making my heart sing, and then look at, okay, so what's that about? And not really judging it as it comes up, but that's instead of approaching this, oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, instead of approaching this whole thing as looking for problems, no, right. I'm not. I'm looking at it as I'm looking for what makes my heart sing. And when something comes up that doesn't make my heart sing, let's find out why not. And let's look at it for that. And that feels wholly, completely different.
Yeah. And how can your heart sing in that moment when that thing is not making your heart sing, but you can make your heart sing nonetheless, because you control your heart. You're at the genesis of everything. And that's the other thing. We talked about the unknown. Well, and I asked, well, what makes one think it's not, that it's not known? So if you're going along and you're thinking, well, what's that doing there? I'm only focusing on what makes my heart sing, and that doesn't make my, and now you're screeching at the thing that's not making your heart sing. Well, then you're not making your heart sing. So, right. So it's how you flow, and how does your heart sing in that moment? Because it's a way of being, it's a flow, it's a frequency flow that you're in. So it doesn't matter whether it's blue or red, or whether it's, this song or that song, because as you navigate through it, that thing that came up that was a totally different song, that was off key from your song, that had blaring and blats and in it, that was nowhere near your making your heart sing, can very well be the set of notes that comes in that fine tunes all the rest of that magnificent symphony that you're creating.
Exactly correct. By being willing to be uncomfortable, and sit with anything that could be painful, and ask why and how and what can we do, internally, inside self. And then sometimes just voicing that uncomfortable ability, that uncomfortableness, like in that case where there was something we were speaking on here in the house that I realized later what I was respecting myself and my uncomfortability enough to bring it up. And so by giving voice to that, first of all, I feel like that opened up a channel within me, because I've already opened up channels to say, I want to know when things are, I want to sit with things. I'm not trying to push anything to the side whatsoever.
Right.
And so by allowing myself to give voice to something that's making me uncomfortable and saying, I'm not sure what this is about, but here it is, and I'm uncomfortable with it. And since it sort of affects all of us in the household, I'd like to, put it out on the table. And by respecting myself enough to do that, it felt like it opened up a different sort of channel that I wasn't expecting. But because, again, I don't know, just the act of doing that opened something else up and allowed that other to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps that's actually what I'm describing, is that log jam in that particular case. And the thing that helped that log jam move to the side, so I could see, first of all, exactly what was, maybe there was something underneath, you see, that actually had that log jammed, that log really wasn't jammed, but there was something underneath that I couldn't see.
Right.
So by giving voice to it, first of all, now all of a sudden I can see it. And it was, so I was beckoned to bring that to that, because it made me feel that that's very much what we're speaking on here.
Yeah. And so anytime that, absolutely, that's a beautiful description. Every time that you have judgment, anytime that you have labeling, anytime that you have, there's a difference in within you, a sense of knowing, a sense of confidence, a sense of flow. You don't have to, you just know it. I'm trying to call, there was a phrase that you used, Sheila, a couple of weeks ago, when there was we had one conversation that sent you on a tizzy for the weekend working on something, and it was something like you thought you knew a thing, or you thought you.
Oh, I know where you're going.
So what was it's just a phrase that I want.
I thought I knew that I believed something, or that I knew something, and something came up to make me question that. Is that what you're speaking of?
Yeah, something like that. And it was also about, I thought I knew that, and I'd settled it, and was something about the turn of phrase that's a really good illustration tool for whoever is looking at it and playing with it, with whatever it is, because what I'm giving voice to is something that flows and is innate within you. So you don't have to label it, oh yeah, I know that, because you just are that. You know what I mean? And maybe this will help. It seems kind of out there, but anyways. So when organic gardening a long time ago and growing organic was going to start to be regulated by the government, and this was I don't know, 20 or more years ago. And I was a big market gardener, all that kind of stuff. And so there was discussion, there were some people, and you had to go through all these hoops to be certified organic.
Yeah.
And, I did all the research, I looked at it, and I just scratched my head, and I thought, okay, I have to go and do all of these things through government agencies that are somehow going to say that this is healthy food. Mm-hmm. These are the very same agencies that are doing all of these things to all of us. Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Okay, I'm following that. And the fees and all this kind of stuff. And if I wouldn't do these things, then I couldn't, it was wrong. So I thought, I don't need a piece of paper. So I just came up with a phrase so I wasn't certified organic, but I came up with a phrase that was short, that could fit on a label and stuff like that, that had the frequency to it that I was. And then I had something that could be a little bit bigger that sat on my tables that was almost like a parable or something that was, the flow of the way of being, of walking in the world, growing in the world for this. And it was fascinating how many conversations it would start, because, some of it could have been about the stuff that I was raising, but more was about people understanding how they flowed in the world, and how looking external to some, okay, well, that's good because it's certified organic, and that's bad because it's not. Yet they weren't realizing that things could be manipulated to get that certification, because who was handing it out, right? And was not really healthy in the way that they thought it was. So that's kind of a long, and for some that may make sense and some not, but we are these things. We be these things. It isn't just a question of, okay, I really know that I believe that now. Because the belief is really, it's something that you have, but it's external in large measure to you, instead of just being you. Does that make sense? So the choice, someone just said, well, be more specific about what we're talking about. We're talking about the what's oft referred to as the separation of worlds. And it's a demonstrable separation. And it's a demonstrable track or river or lane, however you want to hold it, characterize it, that we're choosing in. And it doesn't have all that much to do with being awake or not awake, because you don't have to follow cue, or you don't have to, read different channelings, or you don't have to, you don't have to know anything about that. You don't even have to know that you're a spirit, but you have a way of being. This is why I'm trying to make this point, a way of being. So you don't need the organic label or the spiritual label or the truther label, right? Okay, now I got it. Now I know why I did the whole organic label thing. It's how you be. It's how you flow. And your words and phrases and how you would give voice to things may be very different than a whole lot of others, but the energetic flow is the same. So there are so many beings that, whether they recognize that they're doing it or not, are predominantly, if not wholly, in a place of energy flowing that is choosing not expansion, not ascension. And there are many, although it's a proportionately much larger proportion that is not, there's a smaller percentage of beings who are choosing the flow of energy frequency that is expansion, that is ascension, that is this, as we talked about the other day, this personal to you evolution up jump.
I feel this separation of frequency already.
Yes.
It's almost as though I have ceased to exist for some.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's so, yeah.
Yeah. And
it has been happening for a long time.
Yes.
The Tic Toc time to choose is because we're, well, let's see, it's Monday, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. With the solstice energies coming in, it's different than any solstice ever, because, well, everything's different. So if you look at the plane of Tic Toc from a language, oh no, it's, time's running out, then on one level, on a very narrow focused level, that could be true, because that frequency, choosing a frequency, choosing the river, choosing the flow, that's not so let me stop for a minute here. So I'm not saying that one flow is good and the other flow is bad. And I'm not saying that if you don't choose the expansive ascension flow, what are you thinking? It has nothing to do with that. They are flows of frequency and energy. They are flows of beings experiencing things and creating in things and being and playing and experiencing and co-creating in the most deliciously wonderful things. They're just streams of energy and streams of choice. I know what my choice is, and I know what my choices have been for many, 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 many years to make sure that I'm not only flowing in the choice that I make, but that I am upholding the things that I agreed to do to help others should they choose to even entertain to flow in that choice.
Thank you for that, by
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'm thinking, well, I'm wasting my time or some other kind of thing. Because every choice is precious. Every choice is magnificent. And as beings choose it, it's the perfect one for them.
Yeah, that's, BT, I'm glad you said it like that, because I want to be clear about something here. Because, yeah, it's as someone who at this moment of now, when I said that I have ceased, it's all but ceased to exist for some. It is with complete love that I say, because understand some of these people are very close to me. As I didn't have very many others around me at all prior, and so but I get it, and I have no, because it is all the experience that they would like to have, and I love that for them. It's not the one I'm choosing, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
To some degree, there was at first for me this overwhelming sadness in regards to that, but I don't feel like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel a sadness like that.
I know what you mean. I feel like I went through the 5 stages of grief with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Personally. And
yes,
I've come
that's
to
actually
acceptance
accurate.
now. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you both said something very important, and I want to really mark this. In both of you going through in your own ways what you're talking about, and moving from the sadness and however, the 5 stages of grief and all that kind of thing. The reason I want to mark it, because that in it of itself is you choosing and choosing and choosing and choosing that this is the river, because you're getting cosmic imperial feedback right away, because that sadness cannot be there as you choose the road, because it simply doesn't exist. It is not able to be in, you can't, that's what I'm saying, you can't fake it. So you can't say, well, I'm choosing this road, but I'm really sad about the. They're mutually exclusive of each other. They don't even exist. I don't know how to say it in any more demonstrable a way. They can't happen. They cannot happen.
No, exactly. Well, because honestly, that would make for me, that feels like that whole right and wrong thing, and I don't think that's just, there is none of that. There's no right and wrong.
So if you're choosing the river of expansion, there is no sadness.
Mm-mm.
They're not missing anything. They haven't taken a wrong turn. Good on you. They're doing amazing. And they're creator beings, kick-ass creator beings, choosing what they're choosing. There is no sadness. It doesn't come up. It doesn't exist. It does not exist. In that frequency vibration, it does not exist. Yeah. Now, if you're one who's holding the sense that you are choosing the flow of expansion, that you're choosing that flow of what we're talking about, we're talking about 2 different flows. So that one flow that we're talking about, and you are fixated on the sadness because you look around and you go, well, my entire family is not choosing that. That doesn't mean you're locked into the same flow that they're choosing, but it means that that sadness is the red log. Okay. And depending upon how attached you are and labeling and judging and really, oh, so I got to save them. I got to wake them up. I mean, what the F's the matter with these people? That's not, now you got not only a red log, you got a whole red tree, you got a whole red forest just fell in your river. That's blocking you from going where you want to go. And that's where integration comes in. That's where releasing things comes in.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually heard a question or what, but just the what you're describing there, because going into that, what are they thinking? I gotta wake them up, that sort of thing. That is a specifically different frequency than their source. They've got it just like I am. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different frequential difference, is what I feel.
Yes, it's a judging frequency.
Having just let go of some of that sadness, I feel the difference in that, because that sadness actually was indicative of me feeling again that, well, if they only knew, they, so it was still a, the sadness actually. Say what?
And yet we were telling them.
Right.
And they still didn't know.
So, I mean, honestly,
that goes,
like on some level,
yeah.
On some level, as long as I was sad about it, mm-hmm. then on some level, I held a judgment that yes. the way I've chosen is the right way. And the way they've chosen is the wrong way. I will say for myself, that's what I came to.
Yes.
And so because then, the smarmy started in, well, are you sure about that? Because, you love these people. And, and so I was like, wait a minute. No, see, that's not at all. Yes, I do love these people. And these people are creators too. And they have the right to choose whatever they like. And I want them to do that. No one has the right to say anything about.
So this is where but you don't understand phrase that, okay, at least 3/4 of my life, I've heard that. Can't tell me how many times, you don't understand, BZ. They're not like you, or they're this. But I'm not missing anything, and neither are they.
Right.
And if you're looking at at someone coming into the right family and the right thought flows and the right kind of lineage and all sorts of things that you might set up that would somehow be thought to make it easier, that was a spiritual family. Well, then I was absolutely in the wrong friggin' family for every one of those things, intentionally, so it doesn't work that way.
No.
It doesn't work that way. And it's an inside job. It's a knowing. It's a way of being. You don't need to convince yourself. You don't need to finally, now you could be saying, I finally allowed myself to go with what I know. Yeah, that would feel right. But to say, well, now I got it. I know it. And this time I really got it. I know I got it, or to that effect. But the getting is outside of you. So it's Lisa's subtlety. And sometimes it's very subtle and nuanced. And sometimes the subtlety and nuance is so big. It's like, whole planets coming and bonking you on the head.
Well, it really is a matter of focus and attention of noticing things too, though, you know, because there are so many things, even so, that take my attention. And I don't have a job. So, you know,
I'm
there,
noticing that too. That's really huge right now, is being in control of my focus and attention. I had no idea the percentage of time I am on autopilot, meaning my environment is dictating what I'm thinking about and how I'm feeling. More often than I care to admit, to be really honest, because I thought I've been kind of doing this full-fledged 100% for quite a while now. Not so much, because my mind is not trained at all. My mind runs away with me. So this is really, really important, that focus and attention piece, to not be on autopilot is more challenging than I thought.
yeah.
For sure.
Well, and that's that course correcting, you know, and people sometimes chuckle or roll their eyes when I say you may have to do that 52 million times in a day or an hour. I'm not kidding. And it's not hyperbole. And I'm not exaggerating. And when you notice that you have to course correct, instead of saying, oh, I'm never going to get it right, I'm getting this right, it's just going, you go, yay. That's a moment where you stand up and you applaud and you hug yourself, because that's a red log. That course correction is a red log. Oh, wow, look at that. This is beautiful. Look at all of the nuance and all the interesting things on this red log. Great. And in noticing it, not attaching to it, not going into the story of it, not, oh, I got to get out the chainsaw and, chop this thing up. You dematerialize.
Yeah, you clear the log jam. Just really, for me, that's why I feel like just that, respecting myself enough to voice my uncomfortableness, the thing that was causing me an agitation, in whatever way, just to voice that. I recognize now was a method of log jam removal in a way, because it allowed enough flow for me to see what caused that log jam. In that particular case, it was actually a symptom of a deeper issue. And so, but by being willing to just respect myself enough to bring something up that was making me uncomfortable, that was enough, apparently, to give a little bit of a freeing method of that log jam for whatever was holding that in place or causing that uncomfortableness to actually be seen. And I feel like in this energetic climate right now, hashtag all becomes transparent now is a real thing. I mean, I see how real that is, that energetic, myself. And so I feel like it's almost really, it would be, I would have to be actively not paying attention and specifically going like this or na to not see stuff for myself about me, this kind of a thing right now. Mm-hmm. So the Tic Toc, it's time to choose. Honestly, I feel that's a big energetic as far as the transparency is concerned, which again, it's not a judgment at all. It's just that if someone feels like that, then just paying attention to those things that come up have been so helpful for me.
Yeah, and I want to just circle back around to something I was saying before about, that if you're looking, that there are these two streams, and whichever one you choose is a beautiful choice.
Yep.
The Tic Toc comes in because, well, you could hold it in two different ways. If you think you're choosing an expansive stream, but you're making your think selfie, you're fooling yourself. There's a kind of a diluting of just all you have to do is notice for a moment, and you can go, oh, kind of a thing. So now is the time to clean all that up, integrate all that up, right now. Right now. And so that's one part of the Tic Toc. The other is that for beings who may not have even noticed there were two rivers, this is their choice that you can, you have to actually be invested in your own, as we talked about in the other conversation the other night, your own, am I participating? Am I invested in my own evolution? You can do a quick, you're going to have to work hard at it, but you can do that. But you don't have to be, quote unquote, awake to the two rivers and that, because we're in the streams and we can all feel it, whether we remember it or not, whether, we have, it doesn't matter, because we're not disconnected from source. And so it is innate to us. It's within us. There's no way we could not be connected to it.
Yep, that's right. As individual portions of source. Yeah, nope, no way.
And we can delude ourselves. There are some beings within the upper middle management or middle management of the false construct, the Illuminati, deep state, however you want to phrase it, though they're actually not all the same thing. They're connected, but they're can be deluding themselves that, well, they can still do the flow that they're on and polarize service to self, and so have that polarization in descension and swim in the inverse of the river of expansion that I'm talking about. That's not the case, because there are different rivers, different paths, but they're not inversed ones, because
Okay,
this is the completion of that.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. I wanted to make sure I was clear on what you were saying there.
So the world splits, there is another world, another river, and a whole other flow and existence and life that will go on. You mentioned, there are some beings where I simply just don't exist, cease to exist. Well, that's the case. That'll be the flow, and it's real and tangible.
Yes.
And
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
The cross, it can't be crossed back over into. So, in now, that path, in that flow, millennia, you can come around because you're eternal. So it's not never, but there is much existence and creation that will flow between the split, the irrevocable split, and coming back. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, the minute you said something, and I heard a whole passel of people say, "What do you mean by that?" That there's no crossing back. I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you go? There's a whole bunch of people that went, what? What do you mean? What do you mean by that, BZ?
That it's a choice point, and you are eternal. So think for a moment, what does eternal mean? Eternal is like it never ends. Yes?
Infinite. Yeah, that's my version of
Okay.
eternal.
So if we're at a path and we're choosing rivers, and one is to go to release all that is not of, to intentionally, consciously raise our consciousness and consciously integrate all that is not of love, and consciously choose our focus and attention, and consciously choose our flow of expansion to our what our, you could say, our evolution, our quantum jump evolution, our physical embodiment. There's lots of ways you can hold it. You don't have to have the right terminology to make it so, because it's an energetic frequency thing. But anyways,
Right.
so using this visual, you're at this split. If you choose to, and it's conscious within all beings, all levels, all bodies of you, which it will be, and you choose that river that is the river of expansion, that is the river of integration, that is the river of love, that is absolute love, absolute data, absolute transparency, absolute expansion, now then you are choosing fifth dimensional earth as the ground floor, not the ceiling.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, I suppose if you wanted to choose as a ceiling, but that doesn't seem to make much sense. But anyways, it's the ground floor, right? And
Right.
so it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and beyond dimensional wise, and all the things that you're doing. So if you choose that, off you go. You're choosing that. You've done the work. You are focusing that. You're following, your missions and ingredients. So you're off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ones that choose this river may have times where they're going on a mission, they're going on an op, they're going on to a foray, just like someone might go to another country for a job assignment for their job, right? They got a 6-month gig and they're going to do they're going to be the something or other desk at this place in this, right? And they go do it. So people can relate to what that is, right? So they go, so you may do that. You may have those that are forays into this other river I'm going to get to in a minute. And on other planets, other dimensions, other galaxies, right? So you can do that. But that's where you're going. Those who choose the other river will be in that river, and it's an eternal river as well. So it may be down the road. Have you ever looked at a river, and because there was a landslide, because there was an earthquake, because there was diversion, and the river's path shifted. So in essence, the river chose a different path to keep flowing, and it chose this way. So if there's two rivers, so in millennia, this path, this river that's not right now of ascension and embodiment ascension, if you're flowing in that, in millennia, you could come back around where you then you're in this river. So this one's gone for a minute. So now we've got two rivers. So okay, maybe I'll do to the right. So now you're in this path. You chose this path, and your river is now widening out. Millennia rolls around. So millions of years roll around. And you come to a point again of choosing. Tic Toc, could have other beings have the same conversation.
Right. So
and
basically,
you can then choose.
So basically, you're saying that that the choice of in-body ascension will come around again.
Yes.
In a millennia's time.
Yeah.
Or so. Okay, I get it. Yeah. So it is those that are doing the choosing of embody ascension, embodiment in body ascension. Essentially, I love what Lisa says, dying and rebirthing in our shoes.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
I was reminded of something that Bashar said once about this same scenario and the switching back and forth. He used the metaphor of two trains, and right now we're in this parallel track, and so you can jump between the trains because they're so close together. You can actually kind of vacillate, if you will. And he said, but what's happening now is the tracks are separating. And pretty soon they'll get too far apart. And when you get there, whatever train you're on, at that part where there's no more switching, you're on for the remainder of the ride.
Right. And so you could think of that there's two trains are next to each other. There's like maybe it's an old style cargo train. The big doors are open. There aren't any seats. And you've got one foot on one train and one foot on the other train. And you're kind of rolling back and forth, and you're making your different, so you choose because you're on the fence, baby, right? And now those tracks are going, you're thinking, okay, I'm doing a split here, hence the word split. And what happens when you got a foot on two different trains? You better be able to have really long legs or flexible muscles or something, right? And whatever train you're on, except that unless you have done the consciousness part of it, you can't be on the train that is the expansion train. It's not compatible. It will not. You will, in the body that you're in, you will go out of existence from a body. You'll leave the planet. You'll leave the train on the planet, and then embody. But you won't embody into. Okay, so you got two trains. They're on two planets, right? And they're right next to each other. And you've got one foot on each train, because that's a good metaphor, because a lot of people are doing that. Some people are in the train that, is steady as she goes on the judgment and that kind of stuff. And even if they don't perceiving that, that's what they're doing. Because if you're belittling yourself in any way, shape, or form at all, even in the nano smidgenness, you're in that train. Some people are sitting way on the right hand, so the inner doors of the train, they're nowhere near. They don't even want to think about putting their foot on one of them. Okay, so these two trains, each on a planet, each on Earth, and then you could say New Earth, right? Or you could say the more linear Earth, and then Gaia Earth, New Earth, however you want to describe it. And as you're making that choice, right? So because someone said, well, explain that for a minute about how you can't, because a lot of people liked it when Lisa said, oh, well, whichever train you're on, you'll be there. And they were thinking, well, if I just happen to be, kind of as I was doing this, oscillating fence, sitting on the train thing, and at the last minute, so not a frequency match. So
they'll fly over there.
Right. So if you get on the train that's the expansion train, you how do I say this? So and that train's on the New Earth, and this train is on Earth, right? And if you haven't done the conscious expansion, but you did jump, right? You did said, holy shit, I should have been listening. Okay. What you will find very quickly, and it may be instantaneously, I'm not certain of that, but you will go out of your shirt.
I see. In other words, if the integration has not occurred,
right,
the shearing effect of simply being on that train will cause the physicality to cease to exist.
Yes. Yes, because
Okay.
they're in two different places. I mean, you know, think of all the movies you've watched, and you know, you got air quality, everything is. You got to put your mask on. Avatar is a good one, right? You know what happens when they went out, if the humans, and usually it was the bad guys, you know, went out on the planet, and the air wasn't the right mix for them, right? So what I'm saying is, but so hang on, because there's a couple people are going, oh, I don't like this. So you leave, so you're over here on this train and this planet. You did jump. You said, whoa, for whatever it was, but you jumped. Okay. You will then hop off that planet and out of that body. Right?
Okay.
And this is where the 3-world split comes in. And you will come back right away. You'll come into a physical embodiment in a place and space and frequency level on that world,
trajectory,
we'll say, that is not the frequency of this and not the frequency of this, but because you chose, it has that expanded. So if you're, you know, it's a shorter route for you to go to the next choice, you know, that next intersection choice point to go on the bigger one. Does that make sense?
Well, I think so. If you don't mind, let me paraphrase in my language to make sure. What I think I heard you say was that should one, I don't know, such as myself, jump over there, but really hadn't done the work, the integration of all, then there would be a dropping of the physicality and an immediate re-entry. And now the only thing that I have a little confusion over is the 3rd world, or is that a new chance and a new body to pick up where you left off on your expansion?
Essentially.
Okay, so these the 2 worlds. So this one on the right would be the lower Earth, right? And these are the train tracks. So if you've got your feet,
we have diagrams and everything.
That's
We
right.
just rocking it out here on CC.
I know it.
so that's your head, and these are your feet.
Diagrams on the fly.
That looks terrific.
Okay, and so these have now taken a.
I like how he's upside down.
I was that flexible.
Okay, you can see they've taken a divergent path now. Yes, this line's
Right.
make the train, right? And so
Okay.
this is just the continuation of New Earth here, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know if this is big enough for you to see it. Here it says poof. There's this person who jumped, and they were over here for a moment, but they had to poof. They hopped off the train and the planet, right? Because they were consciously saying, I'm in, but they haven't done the thing. So the shearing force is too much. So then they go, that's when you would then have the 3-world split, because they're not going here. They're going to a world and an existence that's in body, right? That is more expansive than this, but not as expansive as this, and
a happy medium.
And they're starting out in a new physical vessel, is what you're.
yes, and this is
Which most likely is exactly what they needed anyway, so it's all good, right?
And then this lowest, to call the lowest, most constricted trajectory, you know, of the Earth,
Right.
it will just peter out. It won't exist anymore at all. And as it does that, people will then make the change, and this will be the two planes.
Oh, I see.
And the new Earth is way over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It does to me. I hope it made sense to everyone else. If not, as always, just drop us a line, and we'll get busy to make us a better diagram. I love that, though. That was a pretty good, actually, explanation of the three world split. I hadn't thought of it quite like that. I don't know what I thought. I guess I thought that some that had chosen and hadn't had the opportunity to really get all the integration done, or even started, I guess, would end up in new physical vessels on the new Earth. But I can see where that wouldn't be the case necessarily. So.
No, because it's frequency, and it's different frequency.
Right.
So if you want to look in very linear terms, the chemical components of the actual air that your physical body breathes is different on the new Earth. I'm just saying this so that you can understand.
Right.
Is different on the new Earth than it is that the in between. We'll say the in between the world that's in the center, the globe, the sphere, the planet, that is in the center, and again, from very linear language is wholly inaccurate, but the rules are different. The game that's played there is different. There is no people say, well, and I think it was I can't think of the judge right now. I think he retired, but he said, well, you mean we just let them all out of prison? And because it's not in a dualistic world, so that is not the case. And those beings who would be rapists, murderers, and whatever, and for the most part, they're not the ones that are in jail. They're the ones at the heads of countries and everything else. It can't exist. It's a really beautifully complex, rich, and fun thing to talk about, but I can't be much more demonstrable than they cannot exist in the same space and place.
Right. The one nullifies the other.
No matter how much you want it to happen, or think that this would be good, or you could force it, it doesn't happen.
Well, this is making me think of very much again along the lines of, there's everybody's favorite thing is, well, there's this, that, and the other going on, and my big thing has always been, really, have you experienced? Now, before I say that, I know what's coming. I know that bad things happen sometimes, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that there are things that are supposedly existing that I have no personal experience about. People have said this, right? For me, that's sort of a frequential thing too. It's not in my field, in my frequency. So I hear that it's supposed to be happening, or it exists. And I know that there are, framing media sometimes, different things that frame things. But in my frequential neighborhood, that does not exist.
Right.
That's not to say that it doesn't. I'm just saying that in my frequential field,
yes,
it does not exist.
Yes. And the exact same, and so I'll take an easy way to describe that. For someone that you're standing next to and says, and you're talking about a chemtrail, and you're going, look, right there. See, there was blue sky. That plane flew over, and now it's all milky, soupy white. And the person next to you going, cannot see it. Now, I have just described something that someone who knows about chemtrails has happened at least once in their experience in this shirt, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So when you're saying, that's, take what I just gave as Sheila's thing. So Sheila's saying, well, someone is describing X, Y, and Z. It's not in my experience, right? You know, you can say, oh, that's not true, or that, or you're deluding yourself, or God, you're blind as a bat, or whatever it is, but it's just not in your frequency experience. Just like the chemtrails, although the only difference is the being, when there's two standing together and talking about chemtrails, they're working really hard to aid and abet the programming that's keeping them from, you know, from seeing those chemtrails. Because if they saw them and acknowledged that they saw them, then that would be that cognitive dissonance where they then would have to, the cascading effect of seeing, knowing, sensing, feeling, experiencing would just cascade and encompass everything. So that's kind of a na because they're not, because they're on this train over here, not
Right.
on this train over here.
Right.
So what Sheila was talking about, she's focusing on this train over here, not on this train over here. Anyways, we just barely scratched the surface on that.
I'm sorry. There was a little bit in my head where I was like, okay, are we sure Sheila's not straddling the train?
Yeah, there are a lot of beings who, I'll finish up for my part on this, that there are a lot of beings in this diagram who are doing this, who don't think they're doing that. They think they're way over here, but
Well,
they are doing this.
Listen, all of a sudden I'm a little terrified. I'm not gonna lie. I'll end up on that middle world. I'll see you guys over there. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I hope not. That's not my goal. Let's just put it that way. But
yeah, but in every moment you choose.
Yes, this is right. In every moment I am choosing.
And when you are choosing in a moment to swirl and swirl and swirl and swirl and swirl and swirl.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore. So luckily that's not
right. But I mean, so those are all indicators.
Ah, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. That's actually quite comforting.
Yeah.
So, okay, good. That's good to know. Because no, I really don't find myself swirling, because that's 3 swirls. And I might swirl once. If I'm swirling the second time, I'm saying, oh, what's this about? I barely get through the first swirl before I'm okay. Right. Wait a minute, I'm a bit swirly over here. I need to figure this one out.
But even even part of the swirl on there, that's why there are some moments where you're doing this.
Yes, no, that's exactly right.
You may have more of your weight structure, frequency structure on this foot, right?
Yeah.
And you may be leaning, but yeah.
Okay.
If you're in this diagram and you're saying, well, I'm going to go over here, but I'm really worried about these beings and it's sad, we got to fix it, then you're actually not even here. You're over here.
Yeah.
And I need to reiterate this: none of these places are bad places to be.
No.
None of these are short shrift places to be. You're creator friggin' beings. You can't get it wrong, and you'll never get it done because you're eternal. So you're always going to be in one of these different things, and a whole combination thereof, depending on which eon in eternity's play that you're in. So get over it.
Well, you know what, BZ? That's actually, I'm glad you brought it up quite like that, because what I felt in that for the first time, well, not really for the first time, but I can feel that there's almost like, and this too is programming and conditioning showing itself, I think, in that, in various traditions, let's say, can be different religions, can be spiritual traditions. That's why I'm using the term traditions. In a lot of them, there's this idea of you got to get it, or there's going to be this punishment, or there's this, or there's that. And that's all very not eternal thinking. And so yeah, it feels like, because I felt it too, by the way, if I didn't get on the right path or whatever, it feels like
there's creation and experience here, and creation and experience here, and creation and experience here, and there's a whole myriad of creations and experience here, and that's the same for all. So if one is creating something and experiencing it and choosing that, because I'll apologize here, but you are the genesis of you and all that you create and experience. So if you don't like that, take it up with yourself.
Hence the moving towards only what makes my heart sing.
Right.
So I don't got to take it up with myself.
Yes.
Because I'm a rather hard taskmaster. Ask anybody that knows me.
So the experiences will be different. And there could be lots of similarities. Will the experiences be running in a different frequential vein and bandwidth? Yes, they absolutely will. That's absolutely a clear way to describe it. Yes.
Yeah.
Does that mean that that's a good or a bad band? Well, only each individual can decide how at that moment they want to choose to categorize that, because they're the ones who are categorizing it.
Yeah.
Source is not going, oh, you suck, you chose the train on the right, It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
There are no
but we
losers. There are no winners.
Yeah. That's just
because
it.
all are magnificent. This is not something that is a dualistic linear mind structure, formula, descriptor. It isn't. This is beyond linear. Because linear, you're born and you go do a bunch of stuff and you die and you're worm food. That's linear.
Yeah. Yep. Well.
Okay, I will eventually shut up, but.
No. We don't want you to shut up.
In the moment, when you have a moment and you go, huh, and you start to, for you, not for anybody else, you're the only one in the entire sources multiverses. Everybody else is just disappeared, right? And you have a moment and you go, oh, not good or bad. It's not linear. What am I choosing? How am I experiencing? I'm just a creator, and I'm experiencing. And I'm a creator, and I'm experiencing. As soon as you play in that, if you were way over here, just to use this diagram, sitting as close as you could to this side of the earth, of the train, however you want to hold it, right? You've now moved into the middle of the train, or you're now on an aisle seat and your foot is here and your toe is stretching to go into this other train. Because in that moment, you've actually met you. You've done a lot of holding of you and integrating of that kind of dualistic nature.
Yep. Yeah, the sometimes just the allowing will open it up. So that's what I have felt. I keep going back to that experience, just allowing myself the freedom to give voice to what was making me uncomfortable, freed up so much more for me to then wrap my arms around and pull in for integration. And it feels like in these energetics, should one be willing to sit with any sort of anything that makes one uncomfortable or swirl, or we use different words for it here when we the three of us speak, but it's all pretty much the same energetic. Anything that makes one pause and go, oh, wait a minute, I'm not feeling this, or maybe it's producing a specific feeling in my body, or I just feel a general, I don't want to say dis-ease, but there's a general unease, okay? There's something that's making me uneasy. In other words, my heart's not singing. My little joy girl is not jumping up and down on the inside. So anytime that feels like that for me, I want to figure out why. And I'm not judging it. I'm just allowing it to wash over me and inform me. Finally, there's some of that. It's like, I don't know, it's like the more I do that, the easier it becomes. And the more readily, I guess, I can see it and feel it. So. This has been a really good conversation, ladies. Oh, they all are, but do either one of you have anything else you'd like to add?
I've zipped it.
Well, I would like to thank you for the diagrams on the fly tonight, Gigi.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's awesome.
I always love the metaphors you come up with. And Lisa, your thing with the train, that was awesome too.
Yeah, that's Bashar's thing with the train.
Okay, well, but you
but I remembered it. Get on me.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you both very much. And I would love to hear comments, questions, sharings of all sorts in the comment section and or at any one of our email addresses that will always be in the show more section of this video. So till next time.
Much love.